The monitors gave off a low, steady hum beside my son's hospital bed, each beep hammering in the truth of how fragile he had become. Tubes threaded through his arms. Machines filled his lungs with every breath. The surgeon's words still clung to the room like a shadow. His chances of recovery were slim. My wife had stepped out to call our family, her voice cracking as she clutched her phone. I stayed behind. I always stayed behind. I reached for his jacket draped over the chair, and something slipped from its pocket. A sealed envelope. My name written across it. My hand stayed steady, but my heart raced. Inside was a note, his handwriting uneven and rushed. Dad, if you're reading this, go to storage unit 142. You'll discover the real truth about. The sentence ended abruptly, torn off mid-thought. No explanation. Just the kind of message that keeps you awake for the rest of your life. I folded the note back into its envelope and stared at my son's pale face. The surgeon had said he might never wake up, but the note told me he already knew something I didn't. And I couldn't shake the question. What truth had he been hiding from me? Why call it real? That night, I drove to the unit. Rain glazed the pavement. Streetlights bleeding their yellow glow into the darkness. Unit 142 sat at the far end, a cold steel door secured by a padlock. My son's key, still on his chain, fit perfectly. Inside, boxes lined the walls. At first, nothing unusual. Old clothes, school trophies, layers of dust. Then I saw the folders. Dozens of them. Bank statements, printed messages, photographs. Too detailed, too deliberate for a teenager to have collected alone. I flipped through the files. Names I knew. My wife's among them. Transactions tied to an account I'd never heard of. And then the photographs. Her with another man. The same face across multiple dates, multiple years. Their closeness wasn't subtle. It was undeniable. My son had known. He had gathered the proof. The betrayal hit me in waves. First disbelief, then the icy realization that every smile she'd ever given me might have been rehearsed. My son had carried this burden alone until he couldn't anymore. I left the unit with the evidence in my hands, my expression calm, my chest burning. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I became silent, watchful. At home, I began to observe her closely. The way she lingered on her phone at night, the sudden business errands, the flicker of hesitation in her eyes when I asked where she'd been. Her story unraveled one nervous glance at a time. I matched the bank receipts to her schedule. Perfect alignment. Every time she claimed to be shopping or visiting a friend, the account showed withdrawals, payments. And the man, he wasn't a stranger. He worked with her. Someone she mentioned casually over dinner, already woven into our lives while I wasn't looking. My son hadn't stayed silent out of fear. He'd been protecting me, trying to hand me the truth I'd been too blind to see. At night, I sat by his hospital bed. Machines breathed for him, but his note breathed for me. Each detail brought me closer to unraveling everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Outwardly, I stayed calm. Inside, my anger sharpened, cooled. The DNA test arrived on a Friday, sealed in a plain envelope. My son's genetic markers against mine. Probability of paternity, 0%. I stared at the number, numb at first, then flooded with everything at once. My son wasn't biologically mine. She had built a life on lies, letting me raise a boy who carried another man's blood. And my son, my boy, had discovered it before I did. That's why he left the note. That's why he wanted me to find the truth. That night, I laid the file and the photographs on the kitchen table. She walked in humming lightly, then froze at the sight of them, her face drained of color. She whispered my name. I said nothing. I let her unravel in silence. When she reached for the papers, I put my hand over them, calm and steady. You lied, I said quietly. For years. Her knees weakened. She crumpled before me, pleading, scrambling for excuses. But her tears meant nothing. The truth was already carved into the quiet between us. I didn't shout. I didn't strike. I simply handed her the DNA results, then turned the photographs toward her. Give these to him, I said. The man you've really been with. He deserves to know the cost of a secret. Her eyes widened. Terror flooded her face. She begged me not to. My decision was already made. Her reputation, his career, their carefully built lie. It would collapse under the weight of truth, not by my hands, but by their own. I left her there, sobbing over the evidence she could no longer bury. I returned to the hospital, sat beside my son, watched the machines breathe for him. Biology no longer mattered. Bloodlines no longer mattered. He was mine in the ways that count. Love, time, the nights I held him through sickness. But his truth had freed me. My wife had destroyed our marriage with her deceit. My son had shattered her mask with his note. All I had to do was expose it, quietly, coldly, completely. And as I sat there, the weight of betrayal behind me, I whispered to him, not as his father by blood, but as a man who chose him every day of his life, "She's finished." I stood, calmer than I had ever been, because sometimes the cruelest revenge isn't rage. It's silence. It's walking away with the truth and leaving them to choke on the ruins they've made. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment.